It is Wednesday. It's the 23rd of July. I'm Moon Gon-young. This is ARIRANG News live from Seoul. Our top stories today. Japan's 2 lost decades of economic growth. Korea is at risk of following that path, according to Korea's Finance Minister, who emphasizes the need to save the Korean economy from its current low growth trap. South Korea and Japan resume Director General level talks in Seoul to discuss the Japanese Imperial Army's sexual enslavement of women during World War II. Now this following a hiatus in June. And major American and European airlines suspend air service to the Tel Aviv airport after a Hamas rocket lands about 1.6 kilometers from Israel's main airport. We'll have those stories and more, but let us begin with a strong warning out of the Finance Ministry. Should the Korean economy stay the course, it could face a situation similar to Japan's 20 years of lost growth. Well, that's according to Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan earlier this morning, stressing the need for bold and aggressive monetary policy. In the first meeting between the government and the ruling party since his appointment earlier this month, Choi raised concerns about the combination of this economy's slow growth, mounting household debt, and aging population. Now, he pledged to introduce measures to address these challenges and called for parliamentary support in approving a series of economy-related bills stuck in the National Assembly. The ruling party floor leader vowed to work towards that goal, and the government is expected to lay out its economic policy direction for the latter half of this year sometime this week. Now, it's a well-established fact that Korea is a heavily export-driven economy, and almost a quarter of its total exports go to a single country, China. But not only is Asia's 4th largest economy becoming even more dependent on the Chinese economy in terms of exports, China is also quickly penetrating into other economic sectors here, to the concern of many analysts. Our Hwang Ji-hye takes a look at different areas of the Korean economy where a heavy Chinese presence can be spotted.
Korea's Myeongdong shopping district is a beehive of activity at all hours of the day, and that activity is driven more and more by Chinese customers these days. Korea's biggest credit card company, Shinhan Card, says the amount of money Chinese tourists spent in Korea on credit cards shot up over 80% last year to around 3.8 trillion won, or roughly $3.7 billion from the same period a year ago. That is almost half of what all foreigners spent in Korea. Chinese investors have also taken a greater interest in Korea. They funneled more than $1.3 billion into Korea's securities market from December last year through May this year. That's the largest amount of any country. Korea's real estate market is another example. The land that Chinese nationals own in Korea's southernmost resort island of Jeju stands at around 3 million square meters, roughly the same amount that Americans own on the island. When turning the attention to exports, which is Korea's traditional growth engine, the significance China holds in the domestic economy grows even bigger. Last year, China took up almost 60% of Korea's trade surplus, while that figure stood at less than 8% in 1998. Exports to China also stood at $134 billion last year, making up more than 20% of all of Korea's exports. Experts say it's important that Korean companies continue to improve their products and services so they can continue to attract Chinese customers and their money. Hwang Ji, ARIRANG News.
Well, speaking of greater Chinese role in Korea's economy, Korea's Shinhan Bank and the Industrial and Commercial Bank of China began directly trading their local currencies this week, which is a very significant first step towards establishing a broader won-yuan direct trading market. Our Kim Ji-yeon tells us how this is expected to benefit traders on either side of the West Sea.
Just an hour car ride away from the capital city of Seoul, there's a factory in the city of Gumpo owned by KCC Incorporated, a machine manufacturer based in Korea. This factory agreed to deliver its products to its Chinese partners worth more than $1.4 million in the coming months.
We want to start paying in the yuan when we do business in China, since it will cut down our costs. But what we're concerned of, as a small and mid-sized company, is possible risk incurred due to a sudden fluctuation of the yuan. We have more information when trying to predict the value of the US dollar compared to that of the yuan.
Only about 1% of Korean companies currently settle their trading bills with their Chinese partners using the Chinese currency. 027 Incorporated, a Korean clothing manufacturer for toddlers, is one of them. With sales of around $236 million last year and more than 200 stores across China, the company has been making payments in the yuan for the past 3 years.
We currently save company payments by 1% every year by paying in the yuan. We asked our Korean subcontractors at the early stages of the contract to use the yuan and they agreed to it.
The company says it has not yet experienced any currency risk stemming from the sudden fluctuation of the value of the yuan, which is partly pegged to foreign currencies selected by the Chinese government. But it suggests Beijing could do more to raise transparency by sharing its financial policies and vision so that more business entities will want to trade in its currency. The global trade volume settled in the yuan amounted to 4.6 trillion yuan, or $741 billion last year, and was one of the most used currencies in the world. Kim Ji-yeon, ARIRANG News.
Well, Korea and Japan resumed talks today right here in Seoul on the forced sexual enslavement of Korean women by the Japanese military in the early 20th century. Now, it marks the first time that senior officials from the two sides will be meeting since Tokyo released its review of the Kono Statement. Now, the 1993 statement is an apology made by the Japanese government for its wartime atrocities. The Korean government is expected to issue a formal complaint on Japan's review of that statement and then once again call on Tokyo to compensate the victims of forced sexual enslavement. The two sides may also discuss the possibility of a ministerial-level meeting which could take place next month on the sidelines of the ASEAN Regional Forum in Myanmar. Meanwhile, two victims, Korean victims, were forced into sexual slavery by the Japanese military during World War II have set out on a mission in the U.S. to spread awareness about the highly emotive issue. Their first stop was to a statue in California that commemorates the women, a small memorial that a group of Japanese Americans would like to see removed. Our Yudian reports.
When they were in their teens, Yuk-sun and Kang Il-chul were forced to serve as sex slaves at a military brothel. Today, they are reaching out to make sure their story isn't forgotten. In a press briefing in Los Angeles, the two women emphasized they don't have much time left and repeated a call to the Japanese government to issue a fresh apology.
It's as if the Japanese government is putting off apologizing and is just waiting for us to all die, but we must receive an apology. I will never forget that we've had to go through this, and I will repay what I've had to go through even after I die.
Yi and Kang also expressed appreciation for a statue dedicated to the women and put up in the city of Glendale, California, and offer support to keep it there. A group of Japanese Americans sued the city in February and demanded the statue be removed, and the city of Glendale is fighting back.
The next step will be for the court to decide the motion to dismiss, and hopefully the court will agree with us that the city of Glendale has the right to express its respect.
The two women will continue on their journey, which will take them to the East Coast and other monuments dedicated to the former sex slaves in Virginia and New Jersey. They'll also continue to hold out hope that the Japanese government issues a fresh apology and makes reparations to the few dozen victims who remain alive today. Yurian, ARIRANG News.
Well, this will enrage some here in Korea, or most. The president of Japan's public broadcaster NHK has once again made some very controversial comments about wartime sex slavery. In an interview with a Kyoto news agency on Tuesday, Katsuto Momi repeated that every country at war had their own system of sex slavery. Well, he said this is his personal view and is not something that can be easily changed. Back in January, Momil said that the practice, which was considered wrong under today's standards or values, was common in every country during war. Those comments were widely criticized inside and outside of Japan due to concerns it might affect NHK's production direction. And regarding such concerns, he said his views would not be reflected in NHK's output. The United States plans to spend nearly $6 billion over the next 5 years on expanding its missile defense capabilities. In a report released Tuesday, the U.S. Congressional Budget Office said that the 5-year allocation of $5.8 billion includes the cost for research, development, and maintenance of the Missile Defense Agency's ground-based mid-course defense program. Well, that program is designed to fend off ballistic missile threats from North Korea and Iran. And the report was put together at the request of Senator Jeff Sessions.
All of the day's important events close to home and around the world. Join Moon Gon-young live from Seoul.
Mobile shopping market for the dual use of the Korean name East Sea and Japanese name Sea of Japan in school textbooks in the state of Virginia. Now, the authorities charged with tracking down the fugitive owner of the Sewol ferry, which is the sunken ferry back in April, they are coming under heavy criticism after it turned out that Yu Byung-un, the man they had spent a fortune scouring the country for, had been laying dead in a secluded orchid right under their nose. And what could have taken them 40 days to figure out the body was that of Yu. Well, certainly more questions than answers remain at this point. Our Park Ji-won reports on how the police and the prosecution are coming under fire for their poor investigation.
Yu Byung-un's body was first brought to the attention of police in Korea's southwestern city of Suncheon on June 12th. The location is critical, as this is the last place the 73-year-old fugitive was seen alive at the end of May. The city and its surrounding areas had been the focal point of the manhunt, but despite this, police failed to consider the body might be that of Yu Byung-un. Police say they couldn't make the seemingly simple connection because the body had already severely decomposed, and it was proving hard to recover fingerprints. It doesn't stop there, however, as there are other factors adding to the criticism that the police wasted precious time and resources searching for a dead man. The body was wearing expensive Italian jacket and had a cloth bag with the phrase "Love Like a Dream" stitched on it, which is the title of Yu's book. Since the identity of the body was confirmed to be Yu, the head of the local police station, which first received word about the body, has been relieved of his duties. Prosecutor General Kim Jin-tae has also ordered an investigation into why it took nearly 40 days to confirm Yu's identity and on whether there were any problems in the process. The lack of police-prosecutor coordination is also coming in for criticism. Prosecutors reissued an arrest warrant for Yu on Monday after the previous 6-month warrant expired. However, it wasn't until Tuesday that the news broke out that the police found the body, meaning prosecutors didn't know about its existence until Monday. Meanwhile, the nation's financial authority has begun proceedings to impose massive penalties against several financial institutions and dozens of executives and company officials who had granted bad loans to the Yu family or his ailing companies. The Financial Supervisory Service has just completed its special investigation on some 30 institutions, and the penalties will be dished out in the fall. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
Major airlines have closed routes to Tel Aviv. This after a rocket assumed to have been shot by Hamas militants fell just about 2 kilometers away from the city's main international airport. The death toll from that conflict also tops 620, with the overwhelming majority inflicted on the Palestinian side. Our Kim Min-ji has the details.
As the crisis deepens in the Middle East, major international carriers have grounded their flights to and from Tel Aviv. The suspensions came after a rocket landed just 1.6 kilometers away from the city's main air hub, Ben Gurion International Airport. The U.S. Federal Aviation Administration has banned all American airliners from flying in or out of Tel Aviv for at least 24 hours beginning Tuesday, and European aviation regulators strongly recommended a similar suspension. Israel claims the airport is safe, with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu calling U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry to ask him to help lift the flight ban. But a White House official said later that the government is not in the position to overrule the FAA. Meanwhile, the conflict has now entered its third week, with the death toll topping 620, a total that includes at least 100 Palestinian children. Diplomats from the U.S. and the United Nations are in the region in hopes of finding a peaceful solution. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon met with the Palestinian Prime Minister after urging Israel to exercise restraint during an earlier meeting with Netanyahu.
My message to Israelis and Palestinians is the same. Stop fighting, start talking, and take on the root causes of the conflict so we are not back to the same situation in another 6 months or a year.
U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry also held talks with the Egyptian Foreign Minister Tuesday, calling for a ceasefire. The conflict has been dubbed David and Goliath, with Israeli casualties only about 1/20th that of Palestinians. Despite international efforts, Israel has signaled that it's in no hurry to call a truce. Kim Min-ji, ARIRANG News.
Now, on to the aftermath of the crash of the Malaysia Airlines Flight 17. The bodies of the victims have begun to leave the rebel-controlled area to begin a long journey back to the Netherlands, because most of the passengers on board were Dutch nationals. Now, forensic experts have begun accounting for the bodies that arrived in the Ukrainian town of Kharkiv, and Dutch officials say that about 200 of the 298 people on Flight 17 appear to have been found so far, and indicated there could be more bodies in the war zone. Well, it had been widely reported that more than 280 bodies were on that refrigerated train, along with some 87 body parts. The first group of remains is due to be flown to the Netherlands on Wednesday, as that country, of course, saw the most number of passenger casualties, and it marks a day of national mourning. The plane's black boxes, which were handed to Malaysian officials yesterday by the militants, are set to be flown to England for analysis. And all of this as EU foreign ministers agreed in Brussels to expand sanctions against Russia unless Moscow swiftly acts to resolve issues with rebels believed to have shot down the passenger jet. U.S. intelligence officials say their analysis showed that rebels may have shot down the plane by mistake, but that there is no evidence yet that directly links Russia to the crash. Meanwhile, in other news, South Korea and the U.S. are working closely to restore and prevent illegal trafficking of cultural assets. Representatives from Korea's Cultural Heritage Administration and U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement have signed their first memorandum of understanding to set the framework for exchange of information and cooperation on protecting and restituting cultural property. The agreement comes after U.S. President Barack Obama returned 9 ancient Korean royal seals upon his visit to Sewol back in April. And with this agreement, Sewol is expected to retrieve traditional cultural assets shipped out of the country by the American military during the Korean War. Now, these include 2 traditional seals Sewol expects to be returned early 2015. And now it's time for our daily arts and culture segment, where we take a look at the arts and culture landscape here in Korea. And of course, our Im Yoon-hee joins me live today in the studio with some multi-talented stars. So Yoon-hee, now I know that Korean stars, are known for showing off their talents in multiple fields, like ranging from singing and dancing to acting. You know, they're just very talented people, in my view. And you've gotten some of the most recent examples today.
Right. So these stars are just showing so much talent in such a range of different fields, as Kan-young said. So today, I have a look at a few of these stars who show their versatility. Take a look.
Park Myung-soo, sometimes referred to as the Great Park, is one of Korea's favorite personalities for a number of reasons. He's a popular comedian, but has also been successful with other endeavors, including his recently released single. The song is inspired by none other than the ever-so-popular Korean street food, tteokbokki. It's only fitting that the comedian has dedicated an entire song to the spicy rice cake dish. Park collaborated with singer Kim Ye-rim for the song, which is shot up to the music charts. Another artist showing his talents in multiple fields is actor Yoo Yeon-suk. He first debuted in a small movie role, but after starring in hits like A Werewolf Boy and the cult hit Reply 1994, he's now a regular on the screen. Yoo can be seen in dramas, movies, and reality shows, but on August 1st, he'll be breaking into a new field, this time as a photographer. In response to his photography, he said that more important than having a dream is to not forget the dream. His gallery, titled Ai, holds double meaning. It's translated to child, but also refers to the English word it sounds like, I.
You know, it's really great to see, you know, when stars use their talents to make a difference, to do something good for the world, and use their influence to make this society a better one, I suppose. And I know Yoo Yeon-suk is one of them.
Right. So not only are they very successful and talented, but they really have a lot of compassion and a big heart. So actually, Yoo Yeon-suk is actually planning on donating all proceeds from his exhibition to help the children in Africa. He's been working on this project for a while. He's actually also planning on publishing a book about his story. And so he wants to help these children, you know, realize their dreams under their circumstances.
Right. So, you know, I suppose you could call it another talent. So for this actor. And you know, sticking with the theme of multi-talented stars, I know you have a couple more for us.
Right, so I have said this many times here, and I cannot say it enough. Musicals are really taking advantage of casting these big-name stars. And so today I have a couple more stars who are showing their versatility as well. And the musicals are doing successful in the box office. You know, they're bringing in ticket sales, and they're doing well in Korea along with abroad. Take a look.
Korea's first instrumental idol band, FT Island, has been a fixture atop the charts over the years. But member Lee Hong-gi is showing that he has another trick up his sleeve. The lead vocalist was cast as Dracula in the musical Vampire, set to tour Japan starting in August. It's been 5 years since he's been on the musical stage, but his fans are more confident than ever in his abilities, as tickets for the first of the 7 showings have already been completely sold out. Over in Korea, the musical Zorro is set to retake the stage, starting next month. It hasn't been seen since 2011 on the peninsula, and much like its debut showing, the musical once again boasts a star-studded cast. AOA's Choa will be playing the role of Luisa, the main female lead, and Zorro's love interest. Meanwhile, Chinese Ki, Bis Yosub, and Hui Sung will take turns playing the role of the title character, the man in the mask, Zorro. With that much star power, it'll be tough for fans to choose which show to attend.
Well, another very big production with some of the biggest names in K-pop wave, in the Korean wave, Hallyu. And but tell us more about this musical, Zorro.
Right, so this is a very exciting story. Zorro actually takes place in a California desert, and the musical, the score to the musical is done by the Gypsy Kings, and so some very exciting songs with some salsa influence, very fast pace as well. And so you're also going to see quite a bit of action scenes, and as you saw briefly, some sword fighting scenes as well. So very exciting. exciting. But with Zorro, the character of Diego is usually associated with Antonio Banderas, who played Diego in the movie rendition. But I think with this musical rendition, it's going to be just as successful, especially here in Korea, as you mentioned, it does cast some of Hallyu's biggest stars.
Right. So if you're a fan of these idol stars, you can go and check it out. If you're a fan of, Zorro, you can go check it out. So, that will do very good for ticket sales, I suppose. Well, there definitely isn't a shortfall of performances here in Korea, and you bring them to us every day. So thank you for that, Yoon-hee, and we'll see you tomorrow.
See you then.
Good afternoon. According to the lunar calendar, today is Taeseo here in Korea, which is supposed to be the hottest day of the year. But thanks to yesterday's first monsoon-like rain of the season, it's relatively cool in the capital today. Now, the heavy rain advisory that was in effect in Seoul has been lifted. However, it remains over in Gyeonggi-do and both Chungcheong-do provinces. Now, through tomorrow, Seoul can expect another 20 to 60 millimeters of rain, while the other regions are looking anywhere between 5 to 30. Now, going over to our temperature readings, Seoul will top out at 28 this afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Gwangju and Busan will peak up to 32 and 30 degrees. Now moving over to other regions, Jeju Island tops over to 30 as well, Dokdo at 27, while Mount Kumgang tops to 31. Well, that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and back to you, Kanya.
Well, thank you, Michelle, for that. And that does it for this edition of ARIRANG News. Thanks for watching, and check back with us at 4 p.m. Korea time for Business Today.